Here goes a fun fact about Wisconsin. In 1847, they held the first ever circus in Delavan, Wisconsin. Here's another fun fact. Bernie Sanders is beating the brakes off the competition in Wisconsin. Honk, honk. All right, so what's going on in Wisconsin, you ask? I'm Tim Black for TBTV. I'm about to tell you, but first what you got to do is go subscribe to my channel. Do that now if you like this content. 2020 Wisconsin, Bernie Sanders leads the Democratic field. Trump is competitive, though, in the general election. The first Emerson College, Wisconsin poll of the Democratic Party finds Bernie Sanders holding a strong lead with 39% of the vote, followed by Joe Biden with a 24% of the vote, and Elizabeth Warren with another candidate in double digits, the only other candidate in double digits with 14% of the vote. The poll was conducted March 15th through the 17th with a differential of 5.4%. Now, I want to first, before we go any further, guys, let me just tell you, polls are only as good as the data that's put into the poll, and polls can change, and people can change their minds. And if people don't tell the pollsters the truth, then what good is it? But this is based on if the polling is accurate. It's always an if, right? All right. Bernie Sanders holds a very large lead with millennials, 18 to 29 years old. 61% of them said they choose Bernie Sanders. Coming in second was Elizabeth Warren with 15% of support. With voters over the age of 65, Joe Biden leads the way with 38%. Sanders is in second with a 26% of the vote. Spencer Kimball, the director of Emerson Polling, explains, unlike Michigan and South Carolina where Biden competed with the youth vote, our poll shows that in Wisconsin, Sanders maintains the coalition that he built in 2016, which earned him 54% of the vote in the Democratic primary against Clinton. Now, if Joe Biden decides not to run, things change a little bit. It appears that the vote would be split between Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke. Bernie getting 23% and Beto O'Rourke with 20%. Kamala Harris follows up the rear with 16% of the vote. Elizabeth Warren with 14%. But no other candidate would reach over double digits. No other candidate receives over 10% of the vote. Once again, that's if Joe Biden decides not to run. Democratic primary voters appear to be looking for a candidate on the left in terms of policy. 24% of Democratic respondents reported that they wanted policies that significantly move the party to the left. We've been hearing this conversation for months, right, about the Democratic Party being too far left. But in Wisconsin, a battleground state, the consensus on the ground is that they want the party to move to the left. 31% want policies slightly to the left, and 30% say they want party policies to stay as is. But only 15% of the field wants the party to move to the right. Even with this desire for a move to the left, 84% of Democratic voters either somewhat or strongly agree that the Democratic Party represents their interest. 84% of the party says the Democratic Party is representing them. That's pretty strong. Only 8% of respondents disagree with that statement. So it's pretty clear in Wisconsin, according to the voters, that they support Bernie Sanders more than any other candidate. Things changed a little bit with Biden being in or outside the race, but still, Bernie Sanders is very strong in Wisconsin. What about Donald Trump? As we know, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin. How does he look this time around as we lead into 2020? According to the Emerson polling, Trump's disapproval is at 49%, with his approval at 41%. 45% of voters said they were likely to vote for Trump in the general election, with 55% indicating that they were unlikely to vote for the president. So 45% of voters said they were likely to vote for him, and 55% said they were unlikely to vote for him. So if 55% say they're unlikely to vote for him, who are they going to vote for? It's a good question. Could it be Bernie Sanders? Want to hear something very interesting? 50% of voters reported that their opinion of Trump had worsened since his election, compared to only 31% who said their opinion had improved since his election. If you get elected and people like you less after you get elected, they're disappointed in your performance, well, that doesn't bode well for being reelected. Looking at the statewide matchups, Trump is tied with or is behind the Democratic rivals. Biden is Trump's strongest opponent with 54% to 46% lead over Trump. This matchup is only one that is outside the margin of error. Sanders and Warren both lead Trump with 52 to 48 split. And Harris and Klobuchar are tied with Trump, all within the margin of error. Now, when Howard Schultz is inserted into hypothetical matchups as a third-party candidate, the Democratic candidate's share of the vote drops. Biden receives 54% of the vote when it's just him against Trump, but his vote share drops to 51% when Schultz enters the race. Trump's vote share drops only 1%. The same applies to Sanders. He receives 52% of the vote against Trump in a head-to-head matchup, but it drops to 48% when Schultz enters the race. When the 2016 Trump voters were asked about their motivation for voting in the last presidential election, 60% of the respondents said they voted in active support of Trump, while 40% said their vote was more strongly motivated to the vote for the president because of their opposition to Hillary Clinton. This mirrors the findings in last week's Michigan poll. Now, when asked about specifics regarding the president, 49% agreed that he has kept his campaign promises. 51% claimed that he has not. Voters are split on Trump's handling of specific issues. Also important to note, cable news still seems to be a very strong and trusted brand to Wisconsin voters. They said that cable news was their most trusted source of information, coming in around 40%, followed by online, 26%, and newspapers, 23%. Social media, 11%. Fox News ranks as the most trusted source of television news with 36% of Wisconsin voters. So what does it all mean? What does it all say? Well, one is that on this early polling by the Emerson College is that, yes, it does matter if Howard Schultz is in the race. Not by much, but it does make a dent. And that dent is on the Democratic side of the fence. Hence why people are complaining about Howard Schultz running. He doesn't really pull votes from Trump. He pulls votes from Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. But Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are polling very well in Wisconsin, with Bernie Sanders polling slightly higher than Joe Biden. But if Joe Biden's out of the race, now it becomes a matchup between Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke. I think that Bernie Sanders has done a great job of getting out the message so far. He's also building on an infrastructure that's unmatched. I don't think anyone can say that if you have offices across the country, including Wisconsin, that you don't have a leg up on the competition come 2020. So all competitors will have to start facilitating some type of response to Bernie Sanders in these key locations if they want to have a chance in the primaries. Running down a list of the polling of each candidate, let's see what we got. At 39%, we have Bernie Sanders. At 24%, we have Joe Biden. 14, Elizabeth Warren. 6, Beto O'Rourke. 5, Kamala Harris. 4, Amy Klobuchar. 2, Cory Booker. 1, Andrew Yang. 1, Pete Buttigieg. 1, Kirsten Gillibrand. 0, John Hickenlooper. 0, Tulsi Gabbard. 0, Jay Inslee. 0, Julian Castro. And 3%, someone else. I don't know who that someone else is. I think it's a combination of all other people who have no national profile but are running. All right, there you have it, folks. The update on Bernie Sanders and the 2020 election, where things stand in polling in Wisconsin. Now, go donate to the Tulsi Gabbard campaign at Tulsi2020.com. I believe that Tulsi Gabbard should be on that debate stage, don't you?